This is take 6 of this video, and my wife, whose arms are about to fall off, has told me that I need to just spit it out. So we're just gonna spit it out. This rifle is dialed. I love when I have a gun that I could just pick up at any time and go hunting. But most people, when they get a rifle, they go to the store, say, I want the black one. The store says, what scope do you want? They're like, well, probably the big one. That looks sniperish. And then the store offers to sight it in for them, puts it on, and you're like, yeah, what else would I do? It's ready to go. If it's sighted in, I'm ready to go hunting. What I've learned is a stock rifle like this that's just scoped up needs a lot of work done to it to really be ready to maximize your chance of success. I mean, think about this. Some elk tags are over $1,000 now just for the tag. Just for a tag that you have to have a chance to draw. Then you travel, you go on this hunt. Like, you want to be dialed when the moment of truth happens. So first, we're going to talk about accuracy. But today's video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. You guys, kids are getting crafty about finding out what they're getting for Christmas before the actual day. This is true. I bought my son a radar gun so he could see how fast he can kick his soccer ball or baseball or whatever, throw a football. The very next day, he was asking me about sports radar guns. Did he see my search history or maybe some retargeting ads since I'd visited a site about it? Here's how you fix this. Turn off your VPN for a day and throw them off your tail. Visit sites about antifungal cream or the worst gift ever, socks. Then turn on the VPN, do your actual shopping, and when the day arrives, they'll have no idea what you actually bought. Plus, having a VPN is just a good idea in this world of big tech that we live in. Next time, do your shopping with a 24-month VPN plan from Surfshark VPN. Right now, Surfshark has a great offer, 3 extra months free, 85% off, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. That offer is valid until December 31, so don't miss it. By the way, it's available for all your devices. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description and use my promo code BACKFIRE. Your gift ideas are safe with Surfshark. Okay, so accuracy. Most guns have a 1 MOA guarantee. If you're buying some of the super cheap stuff, this thing is like pie plate accuracy. At that very cheap end of guns, you might get one that's just not gonna be accurate enough for a backcountry western hunt. If we're talking 50-yard shot in a tree stand, just about anything is gonna do it. When we're talking about a 1 MOA guarantee though, what they say is it can achieve that. And most of the manufacturers are saying 3-shot groups. So you shoot 3 shots and some of those groups will get under 1 inch. Then the others, you're like, I must have pulled that one. And you blame it on yourself instead of saying like, okay, no, there's something we got to improve. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I'm talking factory ammo, I probably want like 6 different loads to go through to see which one it shoots best. And I'm going to want to shoot 2 groups with each one of them at least to really know what it's going to shoot well. I want a gun that every single time shoots under 1 inch at 100 yards. Not all guns are going to do that with just your first couple boxes of ammo. If you're a reloader, then you can tinker all you want until you get the right thing. But having a true gun, it's like a true half MOA gun, like this guy, Old Trusty. If you watch the channel, you know this gun is just, I can shoot 1/2 inch groups with it, I mean, on average. And if it's over 1/2 inch, it's barely going to be over. It just doesn't throw wild shots. That's awesome, but they're rare. It's hard to actually find a combo of ammo and gun that's going to shoot that accurately every single time. Next, recoil. So this is part of like selecting the right cartridge, like we talked about last week, the ultimate backcountry cartridge, in combo with the rifle. So for example, if you're shooting a 300 Win Mag, if you put it in an 8 or a 9-pound rifle, just 1 pound difference in how heavy the rifle is, well, that can change how many foot-pounds of recoil you get by 9 pounds of increased recoil because your rifle is 1 pound heavier. And so it's important to kind of get a match of how light something is to the cartridge. For example, this guy, this is a heavy platform. And, you know, in a 10-pound rifle, I mean, yeah, you could shoot 300 Win Mag, 300 PRC, whatever you want, and it's going to be a lot more comfortable. With recoil, my goal is not to save my shoulder. I mean, we're taking 1 or 2 shots when we're hunting, right? The point is, am I going to be able to practice well with it without any kind of flinch? Am I going to be able to shoot it well in an awkward position? And can I spot my impact? I want to see the bullet hit the animal and know what happened instead of like, did I get him? And so 20 foot-pounds of recoil is about my max for where I can shoot well without, you know, starting to develop a flinch. Under 20 pounds is great for that. Under 15, I'm probably going to see the bullet hit the target and I'm going to know what's going to happen as long as I'm dialed out a little bit on the scope. I'm not super zoomed in. If I can get down to 10 foot-pounds of recoil, it's perfect. You can see the bullet trace is super light and everything. So the key to get there is very few cartridges have 10 foot-pounds of recoil. But if I put a suppressor on there, I'm going to cut down 35 or 40% of the recoil of that rifle. Now, I was amazed. I looked here earlier in the day and I was going to get an example of one with a muzzle brake. Oh, here's one with a muzzle brake, I guess on some of the AR stuff. But in general, I just don't use muzzle brakes really at all because I don't like the increased sound, especially when I'm hunting where you may not get earplugs in quite yet. So, you know, you could shoot a 7 PRC, put on either a can or a muzzle brake, and suddenly you're under that 20 foot-pounds of recoil. If you're wondering how many foot-pounds of recoil your rifle has, just Google rifle recoil table and look for the article from Backfire. I have a list for all the common cartridges out there. And then, of course, there's just the weight of the rifle. You know, this one's pretty exotic materials. I mean, it's got carbon fiber, bipod, stock, the barrel, everything. It's super lightweight. But you don't have to spend a ton to get a lightweight rifle. I'm just shooting for something under 7 pounds bare rifle for most chamberings. If I'm shooting something real heavy, maybe a little bit step it up. Okay, then feeding. We have had feeding ruin a number of hunts where, you know, you're trying to make a follow-up shot or something, or you weren't chambered and you're just trying to chamber the first one, trying to be quiet, and it has ruin the moment of truth in a hunt, something as simple as that. One reason is when I was practicing, I would single feed. I'd take a shot, put one cartridge in, take a shot, put in a cartridge in, and then I realized like, oh, I haven't really tested the magazine much on this before the hunt. So I try to force myself to use the magazine when I'm sighting in and practicing with a rifle so that I know if it's feeding 100% and if there's anything kind of weird I need to do. Can we talk about scopes for a minute? Scopes are, it's so important to get this right. So this one is great. I don't allow anybody to scope my rifle, anybody except myself. I just don't trust it. I like having a bubble level on there. So when I'm shooting on a mountainside or something, if I'm off by 1 degree, that can be a miss at 500 yards. I think it's important that it's totally straight. So I put a bubble level on the tube and I level it by, you know, getting the rifle level, and then I'll set up a plumb bob way down, you know, 25 yards away, a plumb bob, you know, string with a weight on it to make sure that reticle is leveled. So this is level, I got my bubble level. Now, how much do you need to spend on a scope? I think $300 is a good price point where you can start to have a scope that I trust to be able to dial on. And the reason I say that is I did a video, the best scope under $500, compared a whole bunch of them. And, you know, some of those $300 scopes are really good quality. I would rely on that. So you can go to backfire.tv. Right on the homepage, I have links to my favorite scopes. And you'll see some of the best ones that I have. I always keep that post updated. But don't feel like you have to spend $2,000. You know, it's fine if you want to get a sweet scope like this Leupold Mark V HD. Super cool, but that's way expensive. Until you're kind of improved to the point that you can really appreciate it, you aren't going to need it to have a successful hunt. But if you use the super cheap scope, especially the scope that came on your gun, man, they can get water in them. I've seen it happen on a hunt. Just ruins your hunt. You can't see through the scope anymore. And so I like to make sure it's set up that way. Where does this gun even go? Here it is. The other thing that I think is super important is Arca, Swiss, You guys know I've been loving this for hunting. This was the first year that I took an Arca rail rifle on a hunt, and I don't know if I go back. So it's just this on the bottom, this kind of line. This one, it's built into the stock, but you can just add a piece of Arca on any rifle. And then, let's say you got that shot where you got to get over brush or something like that. No problem. You just put it right on your tripod, lock it down, you're set to go. It's so cool. And then you can, adjust anything like that. To me, it just makes me a much better shot if I have something like that. So again, it's a $20 piece of little Arca that you add on there if you've got a tripod, and you're set to go. You can add a QD flush cup. It's gonna be better for shooting on sandbags. Picatinny rail, just so you have a nice attachment system to put bipods and different things on there. Okay, then the trigger. You gotta take a look at the trigger because some of them have a much heavier trigger, in the 5-pound kind of range, and others maybe 2 pounds. And so what happens very frequently on hunts is somebody will cook off around too early. And so I just think it's important that you have your triggers set pretty similar between different rifles if you have more than one, so that when you put your finger on your trigger, you know what's gonna happen. I also like a 2-stage for that reason. But I set mine around 2 pounds, nice safe limit for me. And I take off gloves if I'm shooting so that I can feel it clear and there's no way I'm gonna cook off a shot when I don't want it to go. Mistake that I have fixed is also, if you have more than one rifle, different scopes, if I have a scope that's second focal plane, I'm labeling it. So I'm assuming my scopes are first focal plane and MOA, but I have some that are different. I don't mind that, but I have a little warning label on those rifles for me so that if I switch, from a prairie gun, prairie dog gun to a hunting rifle, I'll see right there that I need to just be aware that this scope works differently. And then the last thing that I want to do to have my gun fully set up is to get the ballistics. Now, if you have a chronograph, awesome. It's a huge advantage. If you have a local gun range, often they're going to have a chronograph there you could use, or a buddy that you could get the speed of the particular load you picked in your rifle so that you can use a ballistics app and know what your drop is at 400 yards, for example. So there are 2 ways to get around it if you don't. First is really easy. Just go shoot 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, and just write down hard data of how much your drops are. Great, you're done. Didn't cost you a thing other than the shots you took. Another way you can do it is get the box of ammo, ignore the velocity that it says there, right? Because it's going to be different in every gun. But take the BC and at least believe that from the cartridge. And if you're shooting within, 500 yards, it's probably good enough, the BC they publish. And then in the app, you can kind of change up the velocity to try to match what your hard data is from 100 to 300 yards, for example, and then you can have it fit the others. It gets a little bit complicated, but if you've done that process before, you just need to know exactly what all your drops and wind drifts are at those different distances so that you're ready. If there's a crazy 20-mile-an-hour wind, you know what to do. If you have a little bit longer of a shot than you usually like, you know what to do. That's how I set up my rifles for a backcountry hunt. Thanks for joining me on Backfire today. See you in the comments.